Pledge allegiance. Okay, thanks everybody. Let's start with roll call. Maria Venuto,
Here.
Megan Levine,
Here.
Maureen Jimenez,
Here.
Angela Ramo,
Here.
and Ann Markoulis is absent this evening. And let's move to the approval of the minutes from our last meeting from January 19th. Can I get a motion, please? Angela and Maria, any questions or comments? All in favor? 5-0. Got to remember 5-0. Thank you, Ida. And no committee reports this evening. We'll do those next time, and we'll move right to the superintendent report.
Good evening. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order, if you don't mind, Victoria, and start with my COVID update. I want to inform all that there will be a vaccination event on Saturday, September 12th, in the lower gymnasium at Findlay Middle School for children ages 5 through 11. What did I say? September. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let's start all over. Why did I say September? I'm not sure. But let's go back. Pretend I'm starting all over. So I want to inform everyone that there will be a vaccination event on Saturday, February 12th, in the lower gym at Findlay Middle School for ages 5 through 11 years old. We'll be posting a flyer with details of the event to our website, on our app, on social media sites. It is for all students, all children in the Glen Cove area, and details will be provided shortly. We have received additional home kits and are also getting another shipment of test kits this Friday, February 4th. With what we currently have and an additional shipment, we will be distributing the test kits to parents to utilize for their children and for our staff to use as a screener during the February break and just prior to returning. We will have 2 test boxes for each student, and I'm hopeful that as we go through the February recess, any parent who sees that their child may have symptoms can use the test kits as a preliminary screener, and then hopefully with the cooperation of all in our district, we will have less cases in our schools upon return. Upon return to school from the February break, if the numbers are low and we do not experience another surge as we did in the start of the new year back in January, we would like to remove the shields from the desks at the elementary level. We would watch Monday and Tuesday. We would get updated COVID numbers for our zip code, which I get on a weekly basis, and most likely, if all goes as we hope, by Wednesday morning of that week, we will remove the shields. Additionally, the elementary principals are preparing plans in their buildings so that students can begin to go back into the all-purpose rooms for lunch. Each building has a different parameter by which they must plan: the size of the room, the number of students at a particular grade level being significant factors to consider. And of course, ensuring proper distancing. And so we feel that we can successfully move to begin to bring students back into the all-purpose rooms for lunch as we return back. I am hopeful that the coming weeks will allow us to take greater steps towards experiencing a more traditional school year. There will be some changes as we look at different items that come to the attention of the schools, state mandates, health mandates, the lack of state mandates. We will consider options that we are able to move forward with along the way. My biggest concern, and I think I echoed that of the board, is that we make sure we are constantly reviewing new COVID situations so that the health and safety of our students and our staff continue to be the utmost importance in our decision-making. Okay? And that's the superintendent's update. Are there any questions from the board?
I just want to clarify that the vaccination site is not just for Glen Cove students, it's for any 5 to 11 child in Glen Cove. So if they go to a different school, if they go to Catholic school or
Right.
any
Private
any
and parochial school students can also take advantage of that.
And the expiration dates on these kits are when?
Okay.
Sorry, I have to ask.
So,
Not to put you on the spot, you probably,
no,
I don't know if you know them off the top of your head, but I'm hoping that they're,
I actually do.
I'm not
So
surprised.
the ones that will expire, again, we did not get Fridays yet, okay? We have tests that will expire in March, the end of March of 2022, and ones that will expire June of 2022. And so we will be cautious as we move forward with the distribution. We did get another email indicating that the ones from January were extended to the end of April, but we have distributed all of them, so we're not worried about that at this point. Okay? We will continue to check the expiration dates as shipments come in. I don't know how many more shipments we will get, but we are scheduled to pick some up on Friday as well.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for being mindful of those barriers, because I know that that's been a big issue for a lot of elementary parents. I think that if it's an appropriate time when we come back and the numbers stay where they are and they continue to go down, I'm really glad that those will be gone.
Okay.
Because,
So I'm going to share an experience, if I may.
yes, please.
I was in a classroom today, fifth grade class, and we had a discussion with the students. They gave me the pros and the cons of the shields on their desks. You would have been so proud of the level of discussion that we did have and the seriousness. There are a couple of children that have utilized Post-its and feel that it helped them organize. So they have these little Post-its on their side shields. They did tell me, though, that sometimes it obstructs some of their vision, the scratches or the shields themselves. They are not glass, one child told me, so obviously they're not as easy to clean. But one child asked if we could just cut them down because he uses the bottoms to organize his day. I asked him and one of his classmates to do some research to see if there are alternatives that he can utilize in the classroom that will continue to allow him to have the organization that he needs. It's great to know that students can identify what they need in order to be successful. It was a great conversation, but I believe the majority of the students, with recommendations as to how their seats should be once those shields are gone, again, you would have been so proud of our students as they discussed with the superintendent options available to them and for me to consider. So.
When you just said that, it made me think, are the kids going to have to go to like a traditional classroom setup, or are they going to be able to have their desks together?
Well,
at some of
obviously,
the-
they can't sit in groups if they're not if they're across from one another, without any barriers, but they, teachers and principals will talk about different configurations that will allow, or that if there's group work, what options they have for that group work to be done under safe conditions. Okay? And I'm looking forward to the numbers continuing to surge downwards, and that our community at large and our district in particular allows for a safe and healthy environment. Thank you. Now, Victoria, you are on as we discuss the next level in our budget process for the 2022-2023 school year. Wow.
It's hard to say. It's a mouthful.
Okay, thank you, Ida. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rihanna. And yes, we are on our second budget workshop tonight. And in this workshop, we're going to be discussing the state aid that we received. Last presentation, I gave you one big figure of state aid, so I will break that down for you tonight. We'll talk about the appropriation budget and its components, and I'll show you a slide about the reserves. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I have Dan will help us out here. Am I just, yeah. Whoop. So while we're waiting, we'll start with the state aid. So you know the state has decided to fully fund school districts that have not been fully funded, and Glen Cove was one of those districts. So last year, unfortunately, after we already adopted the budget, in the legislative budget that came in the beginning of April, because it was late, it did show that we were going to get more state aid, but we had already adopted our budget for the year that we're in now, in 2021-22, so it doesn't reflect the state aid increase. So now when we look at 2022-23, that increase from this year plus the 22-23 increase is in that $16 million. So that's why it's such a big jump. Again, most of the aids, other than foundation aid, have increased slightly or basically stayed the same. The only one that has gone down is building aid, and that is driven by the projects that were done even like 10, 15 years ago, that building aid was being given to the district on those projects. They have like fallen off now, and we haven't had any big projects go back on, so our building aid has decreased. Transportation aid, again, looks like a big jump, but in 21-22, the aid that we received was from the previous year, which was the 19-20 budget, or the year that COVID hit. So we didn't get full transportation aid because we didn't use transportation for the last 3.5 months of that year. So again, that's why there is a big jump in transportation aid. So as you can see on the bottom, we went from this year, we're operating on state aid of $14 million approximately, and we'll jump up to almost $21.8 million for the 22-23 school year. Okay, so we're talking about now the appropriation budget, which is, think of it as the expenses for the school district. Okay, school districts don't use the word expense budget, they use appropriation. So, and there are 3 components, and we went over those components in my first presentation. So tonight, we're going to go over two of those components, the capital and the administrative. Capital components deals with the description of the areas that you see on this slide. Operation of plant, that's your facilities. Maintenance of plant, again, part of your facilities. The increases in those two lines are basically contractual obligations. We are looking at the increase in the cost of products, the cost of services, because things are going up. Someone said to me the other day, do you understand that everything is going up about 7%? So whatever you bought, a box, a case of tissues, will cost you 7% more moving forward. So kind of all that we're trying to take into account. So that's why you see a big increase there. Refund of real property taxes. Those are the tax certs that the district is obligated to pay back to certain commercial properties when they file for a reassessment of their property. And again, we have a reserve for that. So even though it's on the expense side of the budget, it also is on the revenue side of the budget, so there is no impact to the budget. Okay? It's a wash. And that's why it is always good to have reserves. So in cases like that, I don't have to worry about where am I getting $875,000 from. We already have that money set aside to meet that obligation. Bond principal and interest. As you could see, it's up a little. What's included in that bond principal and interest is the anticipation of borrowing for our energy performance contract that we're going to do. So we got estimates of what it would be. And actually, it wasn't far off from what this year's bond principal and interest was. So really, it didn't impact the budget that much. We're just moving along with that bond and principal and interest payments. Installment purchase. Right now, we haven't put anything in. We had put in some money this year to purchase a new vehicle for building, for facilities, but there's so much going on that we haven't even addressed that yet. So we may put it back. I have to talk to the director of facilities and see what he wants to do. Transfer to capital. That's what the money we've used over the past few years to do smaller projects around the district. Usually it was started so we have some money to do some projects that weren't an emergency at that point in time, but could become an emergency if they weren't addressed. So over the years, we've done, restrooms, we've done parts of a roof, we've done PA and fire systems, we've done other things like that. Gas lines in the district. So we don't have the projects for next year yet. We are meeting tomorrow night. We're having a facilities work session tomorrow night. And hopefully we will discuss at that session what some of the projects that the director of facilities and I have talked about that we can use this money for. And if the board is in agreement, then we will have a slide at some point, maybe not the next presentation, but the following one, as far as what we're going to use that $850,000 for. Okay, so altogether, that's your capital component. And as you see in 2022-23, it's lower than this year, but that's only because of the refund of your tax certs. We're anticipating there'll be less this year than they are, next year than they are this year. So that kind of drove the total down. So the next component is the administrative component. So in the administrative component, it includes all our Board of Ed, district meeting expenses, superintendent, area, her office and what she needs to operate as a superintendent. It includes finance and business, my area, all the business office clerical people in the building, in Thayer House. It includes our auditors, all the various different auditors that we have, and there's about 5 different companies included in that total. And again, not much of a change from this year to next year in any of those lines. And then the last column you see is the actual expenses from 2021. But remember, 2021 was already 2 years out, plus everything we're thinking about now, we're thinking about is going to cost us more for 22, 23. We're kind of using that mindset. Also included in the administrative budget component is our treasurer's salary and whatever he needs to operate. Tax collector, that money goes to the city. The city is collects our school taxes for us. Then we also have legal fees we have to pay. That's up a little because we're asking our lawyers to get involved in certain areas that they haven't been involved in up until this time. So we increased the budget a little bit there. We have our personnel area, which is almost the same. Records management. Okay, so records management, we were able to lower that because over the years we were required to keep extra money in there in case we had to pay a consultant for registration due to certain things that had happened in the district. But now we've taken that out. We don't need that anymore, so we were just able to do, in that is our registrar's salary and everything that is needed in the registrar office to operate. Public information. So that's gone up a little bit. That's where we're going to pay for our new website. And right now we're in transition. So we have one company that's helping us this year with our website, and they're going to probably help us with the budget and get the budget information out there. But as we're doing that, we also have coming on board our new website and all the expenses for that. So right now, we're not sure exactly if we can do it all with one person moving forward, or we'll still need multiple public information companies to move ahead. So right now, we're just kind of putting in the budget enough money to cover either way we have to go. Hopefully, it'll go down to only one person or company that will handle all our PR, our public newsletters, the budget information, and the website. That's the goal. But until we get to that point, we need to have enough funds maybe to pay both companies at this particular time. Central printing and mailing, that's all the copiers of the district, which we're going to replace at the end of this school year. Again, anticipating, usually when we replace these copiers in the past, we always were able to do it for less money. But because of the way things are, we're anticipating we're not going to save any money here, and maybe have to even pay a little bit more for the copiers. So again, a little bit of an increase, not crazy. Unallocated insurance, all our insurances. Again, the insurances went up this year that we're in now. A lot of it had to do with cyber insurance. They raised the rates for our cyber insurance because of everything that was going on out there. School association dues up a little. We have more administrators that are going to be going on webinars and workshops and things like that. And our BOCES administration charge, again, that's just an estimated number at this point because we haven't gotten a number from BOCES yet. Then the last two areas in the administrative component is curriculum. development and supervision of schools. Curriculum development is Dr. Israel's area and all the coordinators. Supervision of schools are all your buildings, your principals, all the administrators and in that building, and all the things that they need to run their buildings, supplies and things like that. So once again, up a little. A lot of it may be contractual. A lot of it is, increasing, the increase in the money they probably need to buy supplies and things like that. I mean, we got an email from our printer the other day, and we go out to bid, like for printing supplies and things like that. And he said, you ordered envelopes. It costs me so much more. If I give it to you at the price that was in my bid, I'm losing a lot of money, and I won't be able to do anything anymore. And, the question to me was, can we pay him the higher price? And I said yes, because where we're going to go? We go to another printer, the price will be higher too. It's not like it's just that printer that's increasing their prices, they're all increasing. So it's things like that we're facing now, and it's just what it is at this point in time. Again, an increase from this year of about $300,000 in total for the administrative component. Oh, I went too far. Okay. Let's try that. Okay. So here's a slide on your reserves. I'm not going to touch it. So, reserves, I've always talked about reserves and how important it is to have reserves. Reserves are like, think of it as a savings account where you can go to and take money out when needed. And a lot of times, the past few years, when we weren't fully funded by state aid, when things were tight, we went to our reserves and we put that money into the budget so that we didn't have to cut programs. We didn't have to lay off people. We didn't have to do a lot of things you would need to do if you didn't have this money set aside. So when we talked about the tax cert refunds, you could see we have a tax cert reserve when we ended 2021 with $2.6 million in there. For this year that we're in now, we're saying we're going to spend about $1.5 million. That would leave us $1.1 million. Again, if we didn't have that money, I would have to go and figure out where I was going to get money to cover our tax certs for the 22-23 school year. So right now, the first column is the balance in under your reserves when we closed our books in June of 2021. In this year's budget, 21-22, that's the second column. We're appropriated, or we plan on using those funds from all those different reserves. If, when we close the books in June of 2022, if all the money in column 2 are used, all those funds are used, that's the balance that will be left in each one of those reserves. I could tell you right now, like your tax cert reserve, we probably will not use the whole $1.5 million. I don't think we've used $1 million yet. And we don't usually pay tax certs after a certain time of the year. So any money that's left in this year's budget that was set aside for that will go back into the reserve. And that works the same with all the other reserves. Unemployment, we haven't used anything. We don't get anything from unemployment anymore, which is kind of nice. Workman's comp we will use because we're self-funded. So any claims for workman's comps we do have to pay for. Okay, so that's a given. ERS, yes, that'll go towards our ERS obligation. So all that'll be gone. And EBLR, that's That's the reserve that we pay out teachers when they retire. So depending on how many teachers retire, we'll see if we probably will use all that money. So you will have some money left in some of the reserves. Anything left has to go back into the same reserve that it came out of. That's the law. So, and then when we close the books in 2022, if any funds are left over, the board, myself, the auditors, superintendent, all have a discussion of where we should be putting those excess funds at the end of 2022, like we have in the past. Capital projects is the only reserve on that list that I cannot take any money out of without the approval of the community. So it has to go to a vote with the community. This coming May, we will probably be taking some money out of the capital reserve to do the 2 extensions that are planned at Daisy and at Landing. Part of the project will be paid for with the stimulus funds, and part of the project will be paid from funds from our capital reserve. But for that to happen, the voters have to approve us, the district, using that money from the reserve. So there'll be probably another proposition that the voters are going to have to vote on in May besides the budget. That has to do with the capital projects that we're going to do. And we'll get into that, we'll talk more about that as we get closer to probably the end of March and April. Okay. I'll keep trying. Oh, there you go. All right, so for the next workshop, which will be the 3rd one on February 16th, we'll talk about the program component. And the program component is the largest piece of the budget. That's all your instruction, non-instructional part, transportation, employee benefits, things like that. I'll give you an update on state aid, if there is one. I mean, right now, we're being told to base our budget on what we already received from that executive budget, and don't even wait or count on anything changing in the legislative budget, which usually comes at the end of March. So unless that all changes, there'll be an update on state aid if I hear anything else. And we'll talk about our tax levy. Starting to work on the tax levy. The controllers has opened up the portal for the tax cap formula. So we'll be addressing that. Just one thing that, an email I got late this afternoon was in the state budget, there is a tax relief rebate for taxpayers. They didn't give much information, but it's going to be based on, once again, I don't know if anyone remembers, a few years back, for about 5 years, you were getting a rebate from the Department of Finance. District had to stay within the cap, was one of the requirements. Other requirements, the taxpayer could not make over $250,000. It was like a sliding scale. This is, I think, going to be something very similar to that. They're talking about it being based on your STAR exemption. So once we get more information about that, once again, we'll let the community know. And I could tell you right now, the district will be staying within the tax cap. We're not piercing a cap. We're not doing anything like that. So if that's another one of the requirements, that requirement will be met. So as long as then the community meets the other one out of the requirement was that you have to be living in that, in your property. You have to be resident, that has to be your residential home. You can't be renting it. You're not going to get a rebate on any property that you're renting. But again, I'll put a slide up as soon as I get more definite information on that, so the taxpayers know what they are entitled to. And that's it for tonight.
Victoria, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to reiterate that the reason we're looking at updating the state aid, if there is any, is that this is one of the few years in the history that I've been dealing with budgets that we actually have that information as early as we have.
Thank you.
The legislative, the executive budget has not yet been approved. That usually comes about April 1st. And so, although we have been given information to move ahead with what has been put into the executive budget, and if you read Newsday, you saw all the particulars in our state aid readout. But again, that is the executive budget that has not, that's being proposed. A very promising one at this point, and we will await the final vote and the final executive budget by the end of March, beginning of April, if it's on time, which I would expect it to be this year. Okay? So I just wanted to make that clear. All these are on information that we have received that have not yet confirmed the final budget. Okay? Questions from the board?
I had a question, anyone? I had a question on the one slide, you have it in front of you. There was a $0 amount on the TRS. Does that mean that,
Which slide?
so that means that there was none taken out of the
Right.
reserve?
Right. So the TRS is the newest reserve that we were given permission that we could use. And that reserve has a formula. You can only put into that reserve, I think, 10% of your TRS payment from the prior year. So I think it's either this will be the third or the fourth year that we have put money into there. Our TRS liability is huge, $6 million. So we haven't touched that reserve yet, like kind of wanted to build up a little bit before you use it, so to speak. Up until this time, we haven't had a need to use it. But we did use the ERS because we did have more money. Because remember, you want to use, the purpose of the reserve is to put money in it, but it also is to use the money. It's just not to put money in it and let it just sit there, because there is an unspoken cap. So when we say, we ask the Office of State Controllers, how much should we put in, like, what's a good amount to put into a reserve? Their answer is, they don't know, because each district is different. It has to be reasonable. You have to, if they come and audit you, you have to give them a reasonable reason why you have so much in that reserve. And it can't be because, I don't know, I just needed someplace to put my excess funds. You know what I'm saying? So if my liability in my TRS reserve is $6 million, I don't think I should have more than $6 million in that reserve. That's how I see it, because you're not going to need any more than that.
Right, it depends on the size of the district and how many people are working there.
Exactly.
When I see TRS, in my mind, I think how many people are retiring and what you're paying them. So when I saw the zero,
No,
I
that's
wasn't
not-
sure.
that's not-
Has nothing
we
to
don't-
do with that?
No, it's the
Okay.
EBLR is the one we pay them
Okay.
out of, the first one.
Okay.
The first one on that
Thank you.
list. That's where that money comes from.
Just so in case everybody, just so I'm clear also, the ERS is the district's
ERS is
contribution to.
employers' retirement system. Anyone in in a pension plan that is not a teacher, an administrator, central office. We are all in TRS, Teachers Retirement System. Okay, one is Teachers Retirement System, but it also includes your administrators, your central office people, okay? ERS, Employers Retirement System, are your custodians, your clerical, your monitors. Your TAs are in your Teachers Retirement System, okay? Your food service workers are in ERS, your transportation people are in ERS.
And the district is required to contribute to
Yes.
a portion
Certain
of
percentage, yes.
the
Certain percentage,
retirement plan.
Yep. Of the total salaries, the district has to contribute to the pension plan. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know you kind of went over this, but I think it's always good just to sort of emphasize the lines are, you know, multiple salaries and are included in some of these lines. For example, the superintendent's line isn't just the superintendent's salary we're looking at, but in fact,
Nope.
as you said,
Nope, it's the superintendent's, let me put it this way. It's the superintendent's department. It's not just the superintendent. It's the clerical in there. It's the supplies. It's anything, or any purchase she needs to make. It's her department.
Right.
Business, the business area is the business department. The 10 people under me, myself, all the things that we need to operate, our financial software, things like that. That's what's in those lines. And you'll get a breakout of each of those, line by line, once we have a little bit more of a solid budget, because, from budget, things I showed you last week has changed. This, what I showed you tonight, actually, a couple lines have already changed today. So, once we get more solid, then I'll give everyone, community, it'll be on our website, a line by line, and you can see what's actually in those codes.
right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to move to public participation. If you have a question or comment, come on up, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes, all your questions up front, and agenda items only.
Okay, good evening. Is it appropriate for me to pull this down just a little bit? Well, okay. Trish Talese, 29 Frost Pond Road. But it sounds, I can talk louder. So Trish Talese, 29 Frost Pond Road. I'm going to start with what you just ended with, just for sake of not confusing myself. My question actually was in regards, if I can I ask a question about the presentation? That's okay. So just the line for personnel, I guess that's A1430. That doesn't include the following year's, like change of program faculty, increase in faculty numbers. If we're going to add programs, we're going to need more staffing. Oh, okay. So that was it from the budget one. And then I'm going to go back to the COVID update from earlier. So I'm coming here tonight because you're a dais of 2 parties. You are, employed by the district, and then we've got our volunteers who are here, the Board of Ed, who are elected by the people, and I appreciate everybody's role. It's tremendous in making sure that this school and the community and our kids are happy and things are going really smoothly. I have my own personal opinions about the world and the state in which we are in, but I really come to you tonight at a point where we really need to begin to take steps in the direction of what are we going to do to end the madness that we're currently living in, and no longer sitting back and saying, okay, 2 more weeks, okay, 14 more days, okay, let's do this, because it was 2 weeks on March 13th, and we're 691 days in, and I thought we could say we were in a better place, and I'm starting to wonder if we really are, and that scares me as a parent. It scares me as a community member. Our children are still masked. I have a huge problem with it. As a parent of two boys, I see what it's doing to them. it is doing something to my kids. Whether it's doing something to everybody else's, I don't know, but it's doing something to my kids. And the forgive me, wishy-washy information that comes out on a day-to-day basis is not suggesting that this is working right now, so maybe we need a new plan and we need to revisit it. And I'm asking that this Board of Education takes a stand with other schools who have also taken a stand on behalf of the community. I've read 3 letters this week alone from 3 different districts, Port Washington being one, North Merrick, and Oceanside, where the Board of Education and the superintendents together have joined and have written letters to implore the governor to reconsider what is going on, or to ask that about the plan for the end. What is the end game? Can we do this for 691 more days? Are we willing as a community to do that to our kids, to ourselves? I'm sorry, I'll be faster. So that is my stance on that particular piece. It's something that I don't know where you stand. I'm going to be very frank. I know what you've said, and I appreciate everything where you're coming from. I don't know your own personal beliefs, but our kids need a change. We need to move forward. We need to get to the end. What is the end game? I'm asking you to consider writing that letter on behalf of the district. My last question, if I can, otherwise I'll go sit down.
Go ahead.
Is in regards to the COVID protocols for the athletes. My question is, when we decided as a district to test to play, if I believe that's the policy that Glen Cove is following, it's a test to play. You must test, and I am under the assumption that we are testing only students who have not been vaccinated. Now, my question from the school district is, where did we decide? Where did that come from? That doesn't come from the county. That's not a Title VIII stance, because to my knowledge, we've got 6 school districts in Nassau County that are requiring tests to play, and they are not necessarily testing only unvaccinated students. We are the 7th district in the county. So I would like to know why we've chosen that, what's brought us to that decision to do that. Some of the districts that have chosen that option are only in high-contact sports. I'm assuming that means wrestling, because it was not the case during the basketball season. It was not the case during the football season. So those are my questions here in regards to that, and I thank you for your time.
So, if I may, under personnel, that is the personnel office of Human Resources, and all the functions, all the needs to be able to move that department forward. It does not include staffing for particular programs. I think you will see that under the presentation for instruction. Okay. In regard to the letters that have been given, I haven't seen all 3 of those letters. I know that there has been talk among the superintendents as well as among the School Board Association. I know that the board has had some preliminary discussions. At this point in time, the conversation that we are aware of is that there was some concerns in regard to districts that were not following the mandate and what the impact could be. And again, that was purely an understanding that you must follow the mandate in a school district. But I will make sure that we have discussions in regard to those letters. I'll get copies to share with the board, and then follow up with the wishes of the board. In regard to the COVID protocol for athletes, it was based on increases in numbers and in particular areas. So again, we felt high contact sports are not just wrestling. And so we were looking to ensure the safety of all students on the team. Please note that although there may have been some exceptions, and I know I spoke to you about a particular incident that we spoke about earlier earlier this calendar year. How's that? We did have a retraining of our coaches because all students are able to get tested, and there is no separation, or should not have been. But yet, if the student chose, or the parents chose to tell us that the students were vaccinated, fully vaccinated, then regular testing was not necessary. But again, we are also looking at that protocol as we've changed other protocol. The surge in January was our biggest concern. We saw that surge beginning in December and made adjustments again. And please understand, anytime since March 20th of 2020, any changes that we have been making on an ongoing basis, and again, I spoke to a protocol that we'd like to see in place in the next couple of weeks. We have certain situations to consider, numbers of new COVID cases, new variants, things to that effect. And I'm not saying that, well, I am saying that we have gone through changes based on what we have been given by the Department of Health, by CDC, by the governor's office. It has been a year of put something in place, and then, oh, here's some new information. The former governor loved Friday afternoons, and they should be changed by Monday. So we unfortunately have to consider everything that comes to us and decipher where we have options and where we must put mandates in place. It's going to continue until I can actually live through, some normalcy. I don't know when that will come. I'm hoping very, very soon. In my address and during the superintendent's update, I'm asking and hopeful that we are working together for the safety of all our children. We had, and it's nobody's fault because maybe we didn't realize, but the sniffles, the stomach pains, the symptoms that have been identified. We've had kids in the building, we've had in the building that, again, have exposed other students and other staff. We want to make sure that when you bring your children to school, it's as safe as we possibly can make it. And we'll continue to make those decisions with a number of factors that we're looking at each and every day. I won't even say each and every week. It's become each and every day. We will be looking at the protocol and updating it in regard to the athletics as well. All right.
Can I just say a few things, please?
Say that.
Can I say a few things? So, I can't. The whole mask, issue it's a sensitive topic, and there are people on both sides, and we have to be respectful to people on both sides and people who are, still sort of in the middle. We have tough choices to make, everything that's been going on in the news with Board of Eds and things coming down from the courts, and like you said, these decisions come last minute on a Thursday night at 8 or 9 o'clock or a Friday night, and then, all superintendents across the state are scrambling to put out these statements to their school community, and people get upset, but they have no choice. They're given this information last minute. They're trying to figure it all out and what the law says and get the statement out as best and quickly as possible. For me, I think that I'm hoping that this February break comes and goes and that we don't have a surge like we did after the holiday break, after the the Christmas break. I'm happy that the barriers are going to be gone if the numbers stay low. And I'm hopeful that soon the mandate will be lifted for these masks, and then we will give parents choice. That's how I feel. I'm not speaking for everybody, that's how I feel. But until that mandate is in place, we can't really do anything. We can't we can't go against the mandate. Yes, we can write a letter, we can do that, we can talk about doing that if that's something we want to do. But I don't want to risk getting funding because we're not following the law. So just wanted to put that out there, that's how I feel. If anyone else has anything to say, please go right ahead. That's all. Thank you.
Good evening, Melania Gawan, 30 Miller Street. I wanted to ask a question. Oh, short people,
You're
huh?
too tall.
Short people. I want to ask a question about the COVID test event that you guys have on the 12th? And by the way, I completely agree on the masks. I can talk for the next hour on one breath about the dangers and the harm that it's doing to children on so many levels. It's just absolute atrocity. But on a separate note, the vaccination event, is that, I want to understand, just following up on your comment, I understand that there are certain things that you have to do, that you choose to do, and I want to be respectful of the ones that, where you have to follow, where you have some wiggle room. On this event, well, I guess I need to stack my questions. Who's operating it? Is there a particular entity? Is it the New York State? Is it the school operating? Whose decision ultimately is it to hold this event and not? Do parents receive any sort of education about the dangers of this completely unproven, untested chemicals that they're about to inject their children with? And also, are there other events throughout this year like this one? Those are my 4 questions.
So again, it's our understanding, we've had some parents and community members tell us that they're having difficulty being able to choose to have their children vaccinated. And so as part of the discussion, and what has occurred in other districts and actually has been afforded us is the opportunity just to provide the opportunity, the event on school property. But again, it's not our school that's doing the event. We're giving them the opportunity to set up in our middle school, just because of what has come to our attention as an opportunity to have parents be able to, who may be having trouble getting their children vaccinated, to do it at a familiar site, okay? In regard to the research behind the pros and cons, I think, again, the school has not provided any of that information, the school district. It is a parental choice, and parents, I know, are doing a lot of their own research. Could we point them to? That's a very difficult situation, because what do you point them to? There's research on both sides. And so I would hope parents would make that decision as knowledgeable as they can be based on the information that is available to everybody. Again, that is up to the individual parents.
Angela?
And I think it would be helpful for if parents have questions to talk to their family doctor and use that as a resource for more information.
Yeah, none of us up here are medical doctors
no,
except
no.
for Angela, so we're not going to give any advice on that. I think that parents need to do their research, and what's best for one child might not be best for another child. So that is, I'm a teacher, I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving any information
no,
out.
I don't mean
but,
you
know.
guys walking, and rolling
Well,
your sleeves and go.
Yeah,
No.
But
a
I
pr-
mean, when you go to a doctor's office, they give you, things to read and
Right,
consider.
and
I don't know if this is being
that's
done.
not what we're here to do. We're just here to provide the information.
I mean, whoever the
know.
operator of
Okay.
this is. Okay.
Thank you.
And how many other events? Do you have a calendar of this sort? How many throughout the year?
I missed that question.
That's right.
No, we just have this one event at this point in time. I don't know if it will satisfy the need. It's an additional opportunity, but we don't have additional events scheduled at this point in time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a good question.
I just want to clarify that it's one event, but because it's 2 doses, it's February 12th and then March 5th, so that it doesn't look like we're putting on another event. It does require 2 doses, and it is being provided by Advanced Cardiovascular Diagnostics, which is the same company that's doing the 7 days a week testing for Glen Cove City.
Thank you. Right, they would have to come back for the second one. That makes sense. Thanks. Okay, Dr. Israel?
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, I would like to ask the board to please approve items 6A and 6B on the instructional report, Committee on Special Education, and Committee on Preschool Special Education.
Can I get a motion? Angela and Maureen? Questions or comments? All in favor? 5 and 0.
Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, a motion is requested for the approval of agenda item 7, business affairs, B, operations, number 1.
Motion? Maria and Megan? Questions, comments? All in favor? 5 and 0.
Based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, a motion is requested on agenda item 8A, certified personnel, items 1 through 9.
Motion?
May I just say something on that, just quickly? I noticed that we're adding a social worker position at the middle school, and it's not a replacement, it's an additional resource for the students, and I was happy to see that added there.
Yes,
Yeah, happy. I was happy.
happy.
Thank
You know, sometimes we get that muffle, so yes, we're actually very happy for the additional support.
Motion, please. Maria and Maureen? And all in favor? 5 and 0.
Okay, based on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, a motion is requested on agenda item 8B, classified personnel, items 1 through 4.
A motion? Angela and Megan? No? All in favor? 5 and 0.
Okay, if I may, the board under certified accepted for the purposes of retirement, the resignation of one of our library media specialists that has served many years in this district. We'd like to thank Brenda DePella for her many years of commitment to our students and our school district, and wish her the very best on the next phase of her life.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any board comments? Can we just remind everybody about tomorrow night?
If you want.
Yep, we're having a work session tomorrow night discussing facilities and what's getting done currently and what we'd like to get done moving forward. That will be at 6 o'clock at the middle school library. If anyone is interested in coming, that will be a work session. Anybody else? Okay, and now we'll just move to the next public participation portion, if anyone would like to come on up. Question or comment? Okay, motion to adjourn. Angela and Maria, all in favor? 5 and 0. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.